So, I want to talk a little bit about the Montauk program, and it's a theory that alleges there were a series of United States projects conducted at Camp Hero, or Montauk Air Force Base in Montauk, New York, for the purpose of developing psychological warfare techniques and exotic research, including time travel. Here's a picture of Montauk Air Force Base at Camp Hero in New York. Let's learn a little bit more.
In the labyrinthine tales surrounding the Montauk Project, another fascinating experiment emerges, this time focusing on the human mind itself. According to accounts, researchers at Montauk were not just interested in exploring external phenomena, but were also deeply invested in unlocking the latent psychic abilities within individuals. The goal? To enhance these abilities to unprecedented levels, creating individuals with what might be termed superhuman powers. This aspect of the Montauk lore suggests a profound belief in the untapped potential of the human mind, telekinesis, telepathy, remote viewing, and beyond. Imagine the implications. Soldiers who could communicate silently and instantaneously across battlefields, operatives who could infiltrate secure locations without ever physically entering them, or healers who could mend wounds with a thought. While such claims sound like the stuff of science fiction, it's worth noting that interest in psychic phenomena has found its way into actual government projects, as seen with the CIA's Stargate project. Though primarily focused on remote viewing, the existence of such programs lends a veneer of credibility, or at least plausibility, to the idea that powers of the mind were of serious interest to some within the military and intelligence communities. The pursuit of psychic enhancement at Montauk, as the stories go, involved a range of techniques from psychological conditioning and sensory deprivation to more esoteric practices drawn from ancient mysticism and modern parapsychology. The objective was clear: to break down the barriers of the known mind and usher in a new era of human capability. The Montauk tales suggest that researchers embarked on an ambitious journey to not just theorize about these alternate dimensions, but to actively explore them. The aim was to breach the veils separating our world from others, potentially accessing new technologies, insights, or even contacting beings from these parallel realities. The narrative of the Montauk Project takes a darker turn with the introduction of the Montauk Boys, a group of young men who reportedly became the subjects of intense and, by all accounts, ethically dubious experimentation. These experiments were not merely about pushing the boundaries of scientific knowledge, but crossing into the realm of human manipulation and control at its most extreme. According to stories that swirl around the project, the Montauk Boys were subjected to a rigorous, often brutal series of tests and procedures. The purpose of these experiments was to delve into the deepest recesses of the human mind, to break down and then rebuild the psyche in an effort to unlock and enhance psychic abilities. Techniques said to be used range from sensory deprivation and psychological conditioning to exposure to electromagnetic fields and psychedelic drugs. The overarching goal was audacious and chilling: to create individuals with abilities far beyond the ordinary, potentially including mind control, telekinesis, and extrasensory perception. These superhuman soldiers would be weapons of war unlike any seen before. Amidst the myriad of experiments and tests, a particular session is often cited as the moment the Montauk Project crossed an irrevocable line. In an effort to explore and expand the collective psychic potential of the participants, a device known as the Montauk Chair, allegedly capable of amplifying psychic abilities, was used to create a tangible manifestation of thought. However, the experiment spiraled out of control. The collective fears and subconscious power of the test subjects coalesced into a physical entity, a creature of pure psychic energy born from the darkest corners of the human psyche. This being, often described as a monster, represented the unintended and terrifying consequence of tampering with forces beyond human comprehension. The emergence of this creature marked a turning point for the Montauk Project. Fear, coupled with the realization of the dangerous and unpredictable nature of the experiments, led to a sudden and secretive shutdown of the project. Equipment was destroyed, documents were shredded, and the facility was abandoned, leaving only whispers and rumors of what had occurred. The project's abrupt end left many questions unanswered, not least of which concerned the fate of the Montauk Boys and the ethical implications of such experiments on human subjects. In the labyrinthine tales surrounding the Montauk
So, what I'm about to share with you is pretty profound. Here are three brave individuals and pretty amazing women who went through the Montauk program and survived. Now, Holly and Penny both talk about how they've healed through their faith and the numerous exorcisms and soul retrieval sessions that they had to do in order to heal. I can relate because I had a physical soul scalping where they got me near death in order to scalp my soul, and they took my soul and ran my soul on through the Montauk program with Sarah Rachel Adams. Now, Sarah claims to have been created in a test tube and states that she is some type of hybrid. I also have heard that she's a lab created cyborg, that the government wanted to run through this program with someone else's soul in order to create psychic abilities in a robot. I guess in time the truth will be revealed. Stay tuned for the rest of my testimony. For now, let's get back to Penny and Holly and the rest of this video.
Chair. You mentioned a chair. I don't know if it was Montauk with the CIA.
Montauk.
Okay, can you explain what that chair looks like and what it does?
It looks like an old style airplane seat, and it's an almond color, and it has electrodes where your shoulder blades would be. I was short enough that I was 6 when they put me in it. They had to put me on a peach box for my shoulders to reach the electrodes. And they strap you in, and they turn on the tunnel, and you're facing the tunnel, and the tunnel forms a wormhole, and the target that they want you to reach is at the end, and you're supposed to stay in the middle and focus on the tunnel, because the sides of the wormhole form loops, and they reach in and grab at you, and if one gets you, you end up off on another stream. And it's really hard. In those days, it was really hard for them to find you. So they would get really pissed if you didn't follow directions. And we went after mind fracture. So they had us to the point we were desensitized to a lot of the things that they used on us. And they call us disassociates because we have completely disassociated from a lot of things. Feelings. I went years in this life on earth just numb because I was a disassociate. I raised my kids in that state. I only came out of it in 1990 through healing of memories at church. And that's basically, you go to a session every week, and it's an exorcism every week. And I went for 2 years. I've been subjected to over 100 exorcisms because of being a disassociate. At some point, that becomes spiritual abuse. And so I know for a fact that exorcism does not work whenever you're dealing with altars. It just doesn't work.
Chair. You mentioned a chair. I don't know if it was Montauk with the CIA.
Montauk.
Okay, can you explain what that chair looks like?
Energy from them, and because
how did they do that? What base was it?
I'm not quite sure what base it was. I remember waking up and I could look across and there was literally hundreds of cages, and there was children, small children in these cages, and they were all attached, and there was where they were getting electric shocks. So they were in such tremendous pain that they were really tremendous pain.
How did you get to the base? How did you get out?
I'm not quite sure, but anyhow, they were testing also the children to see which ones would survive. So you had to survive this, and thousands would die like this every day. But I remember there was a lady dressed as a witch, and she was walking back and forth through the corridor, and I was being electric shocked, and I could feel her absorbing the energy from all of the children. Now it was a darker energy because obviously the children were being tortured. She's absorbing the energy from the children, and I survived it, but a lot of the children in there didn't survive it.
When was this? What age were you when this happened?
I was like 7 years old when this happened.
You were one of those children?
I was one of the children that survived the electric shocks. Now they had done this not only to absorb the energy, but to see which ones would, because they had other experiments. They wanted to see which children would survive this and not break up. So essentially, I would see the witch, and she would take the energy. She was gathering the energy from the children, and then the bodies would be dragged out at the end. I was still attached. When it was finished, I was still attached. I was in tremendous pain, and I was sort of out of my body, but I could hear and I could see but it was like a far away sort of thing because I was disassociated really bad. And I saw them. When they stopped, they started taking the children that had died. There was so many, hundreds of children had died because it was a huge, huge, huge place. Hundreds of children had died. And they were in small metal cages, by the way, just small metal cages. Almost like maybe you whenever you go into a chicken coop or something, you have those small little cages. I would say that, but in a grand scale, with the cage was just not very big. It was out of metal and you were attached like this. And what happened, it would be like, in the end, they were taking the dead bodies out of the children. And then I remember that I could hear them speaking, and they were going to take this energy, they were going to put energy from them. It does essentially, it puts you or your soul energy in a sort of box inside you where it feeds off of it, and it stays in your body and expresses. It's why we have so many murderers, child molesters, and things like that out there.
So explain how you were exposed to it. You told me that you
When
were
I was
injected with this.
When I was littler, I had an instance where I was injected with it, and I have the full memory of being injected with it. It's black welly. When they do inject it with you, they sort of black welly. It does crawl. It seems to be I could say maybe advanced nanotechnology, because it does crawl around, and it's very, very it's intelligent life. I was injected with it, and apparently they were doing injections on us kids because there was a group of kids that had survived. These group of kids, they were doing all sorts of things on us, test on us to see if we.
What happened?
It started when I was a small child. I would always remember being in underground bases or taking away from my family, and my family wasn't aware of it, but there was many things that happened when I was small that wasn't normal. So I'm aware that I was made for the abilities. I maybe like because I'm psychic, I can touch an object and literally get the memory of the object or access the place where the object is. There's all sorts of abilities I have. Anyhow, as children, there was a lot of children, and they tested on the.
What type of children?
You know, from what I understand, the lady had told me thousands of children were taken, and only not more than a dozen survived.
And what type of children? Were there different qualities of children?
Yes, they took them. They took them specifically from bloodline. They were bloodliner children, specifically.
What bloodline?
You know what? From all the way from African royal bloodline, all the way from different royal bloodlines, German royal bloodline, French royal bloodlines. It was to see which ones would survive and not break, and which ones they could upgrade to a point where they could literally use these children and the abilities that they have, and also enhance those abilities. However, the thousands they did it to, there was only, from what I understand, no more than a dozen that came out okay. If okay, a lot of other ones, they didn't all die, the thousands, but they went out mental or some sort of things were physically wrong with them. What they were looking for is a person who didn't break physically, mentally, and a person who actually became stronger from it.
So this has happened to you?
This has happened to me. It made me stronger instead of breaking me.
So what happened?
Does essentially, it puts you or your
act out different scripts or different fairy tales. Except the sick, twisted part to the fairy tales was that sex was involved. The adults administered drugs to us. And the other sick, twisted part to these fairy tales that they would have us act out was that at least one other child, if not half of them, would be murdered. The adults, too. It would be anywhere from one adult to a group of adults that would also be wearing costumes, chanting, joining in, essaying the children, R-ing the children. Even in my grammar school, Liberty Corner School, in Liberty Corner, New Jersey, I went to Liberty Corner for kindergarten through 5th grade. And I remember as a little girl in kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, all grades, other faculty would come to my class and take me out. And there would be certain other groups or certain other children that would also be taken out of their classes, and our ages would vary. And it was always a certain small group of children and certain faculty, staff members of the school and they would take us and bring us down into the basement. We would walk down to the first level, past the principal's office, and then down those back stairs. Once we'd get down to the bottom, there was a big chained gate. The faculty would unlock it and bring us group of children down that hallway, and there was a room off to the left, and I think there were very tall narrow windows up high on the ceiling, indicating that we were in the cellar in the basement of the school. My memory blanks. But the adults, once they got us in the basement, they would get naked, and then they would get us children naked. And they would go through satanic rituals with us children. Sex magic was used. And when they were finished, they would bring us back to our classrooms. I know I was told that if I said anything, they would kill my grandmother, or that they would take me away from my grandparents. Also, when we were in the dumps specifically, and they would have us children acting out different skits dressed in costumes, they would have us pick another child from the group of children. And always, somehow, that child that you picked, you would think that you were saving yourself and that other child, but it would wind up that child would always wind up being sacrificed. In another memory, I was in the dumps sitting in a group of kids. I believe there was about 6 or 7 of us, and there was an adult there. And it looked like the adult was on a computer of some sort, and us children were strapped down, and we had electrodes on us for electrocution. And the white lab coat had us play some sort of game. I wouldn't even know how to explain the game to you, but it was a game. And whatever child lost, one time, the white lab coat threw the child in a fire, and we had to sit there and watch the child burn. Fairy tales like Labyrinth by David Bowie, Alice in Wonderland, Mother Goose nursery rhymes were also used. You have the Disney movies. Those storylines were also used. Hansel and Greta, Little Red Riding Hood, Three Little Pigs, Cinderella, Snow White, with the 7 dwarfs. And if it wasn't enough that they corrupted fairy tales, they corrupted the Holy Bible. They would read us, in particular, King James Version. And John 1, John 2, John 3, that was the worst for me. I think it's John 2 where they, at the very beginning, the Bible starts talking about a fair lady. Douglas Riggs would read us the Bible, and it had to be King James. Always had to be King James. And while he read that Bible to me, he raped me and beat the other kids. I don't even know why I bother saying SA or R, because I wind up slipping saying those words anyway. They use biblical scripture and fairy tales, nursery rhymes, to act out their satanic rituals involving us children. And it's funded by our tax dollars. Thank you for your time. Holy Bag of Lions, was this one a rough one to get through?
To San Diego State for 3 semesters, where I had to drop out because I had lupus, which was related to my time in space. When I was first kidnapped, I was to San Diego State for 3 semesters.
So today I'm going to speak a little bit about my battle with lupus, how it's led me to be more spiritual, I think, in life, because it does bring up a lot of things that normal people don't have to cope with. And I also wanted to speak a little bit about my childhood, and I believe that it relates to why I have lupus, and also about vaccinations, so that people can get better understanding on all of this and all the stuff that I go through, because I think in the past I've been bullied because sometimes I look tired and sometimes I don't look very well, and with lupus you get some off days where you just are very tired and very, very, you can't eat very well and stuff like that. And because of natural medicine, I have definitely healed a lot, but it still is there, and I still have to acknowledge that, and that when I'm stressed it does come out. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. And just, I think that I could just focus on that today, and then that will be fine. I hate it, and she would make us do terrible, terrible things like that. We'd stay up nights and write what she called lines so that we would obey. She made us do all sorts of work, chop wood, build up houses, all sorts of work. She was not loving at all. We had no love, or we didn't have a father either growing up really at all. So all of us kids sort of like took care of each other, and I was locked away till 24. My sister was locked away till 25, and my mom just locked us away. She didn't allow us to go and do anything. And when we got away from my mom, I was rescued. And
how do these cyborg robot beings, transhumanized beings, or whatever they are, how do they fit in with stopping the goo?
Well, from what I understand, I was, me and a couple other ones here that I won't say names, we were made by these elite families to be their protectors when all this happens. Because we are the only ones who could protect them.
We're here with Michael Prince. We're here at the Super Soldier Summit. And you've got some very close friends.
Yes, I remember Casbolt and Max and some others from...
How do these cyborg robot beings...
So this concludes this little bit. I'll be posting more. Please like and subscribe. Please stay tuned for my testimony.
From what I understand, I was, me and a couple other ones here that I won't say names, we were made by these elite families to be their protectors when all this